Good afternoon, YouTube. So this is the front of my 1985 Toyota 4Runner, and the way these came from the factory, they have this light here on the corner that was like a running or parking light, and then down in the factory bumper there used to be a separate lamp holder for the turn signal. Well, my truck, when I bought it, already had an aftermarket bumper, and it just had the two turn signal things were like zip tied down in the middle of the tube bumper. I had one of those double tube Smitty-built tube bumper. And one of the problems was, since they were in between the two tubes, they would pack in with snow if you were driving up in the mountains in the winter, and it would just totally cover the turn signals, so you couldn't even see them. You had to get out periodically and chip the snow and ice off the turn signals. So what I did was I modified the factory running or parking light housing to accept a dual filament bulb. So that would be one of these, an 1157 bulb that has two contacts on the bottom, and then it's got two filaments there. But anyway, I've got to change that, and so I figure I would show you how I did that modification. Okay, there we got the three screws. There's two on the bottom, one on the top there, and here's the lamp housing. I don't know what type of bulb this used to be. It was one of those small plug-in bulbs that just snapped into this hole here. So I had to enlarge the hole big enough to fit the 1157 bulb in there. So I drilled out the hole, and then I built up around here with some epoxy putty until I got a flat area, and then I used some screws to screw one of these universal bulb holders in place. So I still have the factory connectors there, and then I just tapped into the wires here for this bulb holder, because this has a common and then one filament and the other filament, so there's three wires going here, and here there were four wires because you had a turn signal and then you had a running light or parking light. Just show you what that looks like inside here. This is your ground connection here. This is only, I think, the second time I've had this out in probably 20 years. That had a bulb go out. So yeah, here we go. And you can see it's a pretty tight fit in there. You can see where I opened it up to the diameter of the bulb and then just built up some putty there, because you also have to get enough clearance so that when the bulb goes in it doesn't hit the lens part. I don't know if it's actually burned out or not. Yeah, the filaments look okay. I'll check them out with my ohm meter and see if they're actually good or not. Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe the contacts were just dirty. I tested it with some alligator clips, and it was kind of intermittent, and then I just polished up the contacts with some Scotch-Brite, and it looks like everything's working again because the filaments are all intact. But there you go, that's the turn signal. And then let me go turn on the running lights. Yeah, and there's the running light filament on. So the dim filament is the running light, and then the brighter one is the turn signal. So I think we're all working again here. Yes, not sure what the problem was. Maybe my ground connection might be a little bit rusty there. Maybe I should polish that up a little bit while I'm here, but I just went with this because it's the same bulb that's in the tail light. So if I carry a spare, I've got the same spare for the tail light as well as the front turn signal. Okay, yeah, polished up the metal there, and looks like we're still good to go. So that's the turn signal, and it gives pretty good light. So we got the turn signal back in there, bulbs working again. I just have to hook up my cover plate here. So just to mention that a bit, this is the bumper I have. So this is a winch bumper. I have my worn 8,000 pound winch in there, and because it's a winch bumper, I like it mounted right to the frame because this is going to have a lot of force on it. I've got a pretty big gap here, so this bumper wasn't really designed for this vehicle. It kind of was. The company that sold it said, oh yeah, we can make a bumper for a 4Runner, and they sent me this, and it really didn't fit at all. I had to make all the brackets to get this to mount up to the frame, The original grill that was on here was just sort of chrome-plated plastic, and it was all broken up. So replaced it with this steel grill, which I really like. I don't really like the chrome part of it. I wish I could have got the black version that they made, but they didn't make black for the 4Runner. They had black for everything else, but I took what I could get, and then I made up this metal piece here to kind of fill the gap between the grill and the bumper. And it turns out this is a really handy little space. Like right here, I have my winch connector. So yeah, before I put the flap back over, here's my winch controller right there. And I just basically mounted it to the front of the core support for the radiator, stuck it there, and then just cut a hole in the front for the controller module that has the in and out. And then this winch bumper, I also plumbed it there. If you can see right above my tow hook, I have a little angle fitting, and this tube here is airtight, so this is my air tank, or half of my air tank for the air compressor. So anyway, I'll put a link to my web page where I show a little more detail on how I did this. I think at one time I had one lens break, so I had to replace one of these, and I had to then drill out another one. I think it was actually this side that I had to redo. The only downside is if you break one of these, you have to modify another one. And as always, thanks for watching.